All right, I just wanted to go through how I made my new song, Fearless Warrior, that's out officially today. This is a new song that I made. It's like it's a vocal song, combining like my sort of existing style of like dance and house. And what I did differently was I incorporated using like rap, hip hop vocals, um, with my style to create this new song. And I'd been making tracks in the past that had been sort of my typical sort of progressive house, sort of melodic style, but wanted to do something different. And firstly, this one's a lot slower than the tracks that I normally make. This one's at 115 BPM, and yeah, I just wanted to go through how I made it. I make all my songs in Logic, and this is the project. It's reasonably big. I mean, it doesn't have a crazy amount of layers, but as you can see, it's pretty organized. I like to sort of color code and like have everything clearly labeled because sometimes it can be a mess. So yeah, I'll just start with the beginning of the track. In the beginning of this one, the song is like based around this bass line that I use. It's a very melodic bass line, and it's made up of two layers. There's this Nexus layer that I use, pretty basic sound. It sounds like this. Ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dum, ba-dum. So you get that, and then there's a bass pluck layer. And that's just silent. But what's different is instead of getting the full idea, I just preview it by teasing a snippet of the main idea, and so that's why this sound is different to the main melody. And that way, I just did that because if your track's going to be centered around your sort of 4 8 bar loop, I didn't want to just give that straight away because then it's a bit too predictable, and people get sick of the main melody if it just runs through the entire song. So I just sort of tease it, and you get this bassline sound accompanied by this really cool bongos loop that I used. And a kick drum, which I've made in Kick 2, which is like a plugin which you can like create your own kicks and mold them to your track and via key and frequency. And I use it on a lot of my tracks, not all of them. It depends on the song and the type of kick drum that I want to make. Because like sometimes you might want to use a certain kick in your track, and depending on a whole different elements. But this one I've just made, and it's just like triggered by MIDI. Great plugin, by the way, for like different layered kicks. And on top of that, I've used there's a verse lead sound that I've used, and this is just in, you get this sort of like pluck sound and a bit of a pitchy, like, these are all done in silent, and a bit of a saw lead here. That's a like thing I usually like to do. If you introduce a sound like a mid-range or pluck sound, like a woody type pluck sound, a simple like trick is like adding a nice little distorted super saw lead on top of it, just to sort of build the sound up so people know like something's coming. The other elements that I used in terms of the drums, I've got two different claps that I've layered. One's a bit of like the body of the clap, and the other one's a bit of a higher frequency, and I've just sort of slightly pan those so that they like that sound cuts through the mix, and you get this sound. Got, yep. yeah, so I've just layered those, and that is a sample. And then the other one I've used is Battery, which is a Native Instruments plugin, and I prefer to use this sampler than like the stock. I don't even know what it's called, the stock sampler, because it's just got more. It's just got. It's just got more flexibility, more controls. You can like manipulate the sound more depending on what you're gonna use. Um, and that's this plugin, which I'm not gonna even open. Um, oh, actually, I might. I might be able to just. Yeah, there you go. So it just looks like that. And there's just way more controls with the envelope, pitch, and stuff like that. Um, and the same thing with the hi hat. The hi hat loop is a pattern that I created, and then I've just um, controlled the velocity of it so that you kind of get sounds like this. Yeah, and I've got that. So there's like the kick, the clap, the hi hat, the bongos, and then you move to like the build up of the track, and this is where the bass is made up of 4 layers. So you had the first two, the the Nexus layer, and then I've got the bass plaque, and then, pardon me, the main body of the bass is this saw lead that sounds like this. And I've used quite a lot of distortion, which I usually use satin, or on another layers I've used sausage fattener from it's a Dada Life plugin. And then the final layer is like a high frequency sort of pan flute sound. It sounds like this. So that they're the 4 layers, and I didn't show the MIDI of the track. So this is the notes that I used for the bass line, and it just follows this progression. And I remember when I made this, that this was the first part of the track that I because the whole track's centered around this bass line, and it's very melodic. And I remember making this and thinking I can build the whole track around this idea, and that's I don't usually make it that melodic, but it just sounded really good. And then as the track builds up, real simple build up, I've got some rising effects. They just sort of cue the fact that we're transitioning into the chorus. I've used Battery again for a snare roll, it's like a snare roll build up. Yeah, pretty simple build up. What else do we have? Oh, okay. So I just realized this. So something that I've done a couple times throughout the track is I've created this fill using the last bar of the bass line, and it sounds like this. This will be a pitchy. Which I love. It's a real simple little effect where it just creates a bit of variation in the melody. So when I play it all together, you get the. Which I think is cool because it just sort of signifies the drop is just about to come. So then we move to the chorus. We have a kick drum, which we've already talked about. Sub bass, you're not going to hear. It's just too low. And that's just using like a simple like sine that I've just EQ'd. All the EQ and compression that I use is just using Fab Filter, which is sort of like the common plugins that I use. I like using those because they just I just love using those ones. They're the best ones. So what have I got next? We talked about that fill lead. I use a slightly different one for at the end of the 4th and 8th bar of the sound. So if I add the bass line and this lead, you get this slight variation in the chorus that sounds like this. And if I isolate it, it sounds like this. And I think that sounds awesome. There's also 5 super saw layers that are used in the chorus to sort of fatten up the main drop. And these are all done in silence. And what I've done here is these are all slight. If I play them in solo, there's also a high bass in there. You'll notice that they're all like heavily like distorted, and they've got fill up the body and the mid and high frequency, because that was like lacking when I was building the tracks. I thought, these will just really fatten up the chorus. And on top of that, in the second half of the chorus, I've added a couple extra layers that help the track move along, and they sound like this. And I've sort of pitched those so that they add a slightly different tone. So when I play all the lead sounds together, you sound like this. Yep. So they're the lead sounds. When it comes to the drums in the chorus, we had the kick drum, but we've got these 2 slightly different percussion leads. And if I play them with the kick drum, it sounds like this. I really love this percussion lead because it sort of keeps the track moving, and it sort of really adds to the groove without just adding like a simple hi-hat. So we've got the percussion, the kick drum, the claps, hi-hat, and then I've added this extra shaker lead that sounds like this. This adds to the drum groove, but also adds some high frequency in the chorus. And then I've got some effects that I've used, some white noise on the drop, some reverses, sweeps, rises that help create this sort of progressive feeling in the track. Also, something that's not as prominent that you sort of hear behind the vocal, because in this track, the vocal runs through the entire song, but what's unique is the vocal follows the melody in the chorus, which I really love, so it doesn't conflict. So if I play the vocal here, the vocal sort of hums the melody, and then it also adds some extra variation at the end of each bar, which I love, because then there's no sort of conflicting things happening. I've also added some vocal shouts that I've positioned here. Now, you won't be able to hear these. It's hard to hear them, but they add some great sort of complementary effect to the track that sound like this. This just adds, I feel like it adds extra impact and like adds to like the groove of the chorus here. So I'll play this again. Combine it to the bass line. That's another unique thing that I did with this track. It's sort of like this sort of subtle vocal shout effect. And then we'll go to the next section, which is the break. Now, I did try to make this break really unique in the sense that it strips back to the same as the intro, where it's just this bass line. It's just like, and that just comes in, and then with the break melody, instead of like playing the same melody through the 16 bars, it just teases the melody, and you'll notice that it sounds like this. Break. And that just adds, you just sort of get like it teases the break, but then it allows the vocal to shine as well. Say lame ain't nothing like me, but I lose, but I sent through. You know I had a love, and if you wanted love, then let her get you. Get it, get to you too. You know I had a love, gotta go pitter, gotta get in the shade, gotta get in fresh. So you get this sort of space for the vocal to, like the rap to shine in the first 8 bars. Then, but what's interesting in the 8 bars, 8 to 16, the melody fills out, and then the vocal takes a bit of a back seat. And I'll show you what that means, like here. Away, and it's another day. And it's just like a nice contrast. It's like the melody takes over, and then the guy rapping, he's just sort of like humming, and it's like this nice little sort of progression in the break. I just thought that was a nice little cool effect. And with the second part of this break, I've added, as the melody fills out, I've added these super saw layers that sound like this. I thought that might sound a bit too like cheesy, but I just thought that sounded awesome. Like, and if I add all the different elements, you've got same claps, hi-hats, shakers, bongos, and kick. So I really put a lot of effort into trying to make this break really interesting. And then I've got, that takes you to the second build up, which I added all the layers, but filtered them all out. So you get this like introduction. So you just like know it's coming. Like you know the second drop's coming, and you get introduced to all the sounds. And that's slightly different to the first verse. You just get this first 2 layers. And then in the chorus, it's the same arrangement as the first chorus, but the vocal's different. I added some effects to create this sort of droning effect. So the second chorus sounds different because the guy performs a different vocal. And as it builds up, I've looped the vocal. I forgot to tell you, when the vocal in the second drop comes, you get this. And then it pitches up like this. I thought that was a really cool effect. Like, not too cheesy, but like, and as that builds up, you get a slightly different performance in the vocal. Like this pumping drone effect. So I didn't have to add too much addition and variation in the second drop. I had this, it was all in the performance of the vocal. So if I play that all together, you get a different performance that just sort of hits in the vocal like there. So yeah, with the second chorus, it's just all the same as the first, but with the addition of the vocal. So that's basically all the parts I wanted to talk about in how I made the track. And this track's called Fearless Warrior, and it's out now. So you can go stream it on Spotify. It's on my YouTube channel. It's also on my SoundCloud or any other streaming platform that you listen. And I'm really excited about this one. And I just wanted to show you guys how I put this track together. And thanks for watching. And I'll just go out playing the last part here. All right, thank you.